warm-ups, timing, and attempts on meet day. It's a really great topic that we're going to spend some time diving into. It's actually one that I'm super passionate about. Through my long career of lifting and handling athletes, I've seen so many mistakes made prior to the platform, in the warm-up room, in the gym, before we even get to the meet. And that's actually where we're going to start. So you might be wondering, why are we talking about the gym over and over and over before we even had a chance to talk about meet day? Well, we need to practice like we play. So there's some very important and key details that must be addressed that will lead into a successful meet day. You can see here behind me is an article I wrote 2 years ago, give or take, or more, from 2018. I was super passionate about helping athletes fix this because I see the problem all the time. So I'm going to reference this article here behind me that you can see. You can find it on the Kabuki Strength website with our many other great articles. I highly suggest you read it in detail because I'm only going to take a couple bullet points from this, maybe read one small paragraph. But in there also, Brandon Sin, our head coach, made an awesome, just a simple Excel sheet. You can download it, and it will allow you to put in your working weight for the day and follow the suggestion that I give on the load schemes, the jumps on how you should get there warming up. Again, one of the biggest mistakes I see from beginner and intermediate athletes, I would actually also propose some pro and advanced athletes as well, is number one, the lack of intent. We talk about intent all the time at our Principles of Loaded Movement seminars. And that's not just me pushing my feet into the floor harder and trying to stand up with more weight on the bar, right? Most strong people understand how to do that. But it's the lack of intent when they get under the bar for the first time. And planning warm-ups for the weights they load sometimes is never even considered. So many people that read this article or I've talked to about this over all the years that I've preached my theory on this, a lot of people are blown away. I'm like, wow, I've never thought about it. And to me, that's crazy. I'm like, well, why would you not, right? Look at our programs we build. Look at the programs you buy online. There's so much information about the weights you should lift, but rarely do people talk about or program warm-ups. Now, I'm not going to program warm-ups for our athletes or my athletes because I wrote this article and I encourage them to educate themselves and get better at it. But then we jump into timing and actual attempts. So again, we'll cover all those today. But to back up why it's important and why it's passionate to me is the three examples that we'll get into from the article. One would be a bench presser, and I would say it'd be more of the bodybuilder type, gym bro, if I was to call somebody out and make fun of them, who comes in, maybe they're going to attempt a new max, and I watch them put moderate weight on, they hit it for 15, then a little more weight, hit it for 12, and then maybe 10 or 8, and they go up for a couple more, and then all of a sudden they do 2, and maybe they try to match their previous PR, maybe they try to beat it, and they're struggling. Well, there's a couple problems there. One, in my opinion, half of their warm-ups were spent with more endurance-type muscle fibers. And I say type here in air quotes. We're not going to get into a deep discussion between type 1, type 2, different muscle fiber makeups between genetics and muscle groups within bodies. But just understand, right, if we're moving moderate weight, something that we could do for probably 30, we're really not waking up our explosive type 2 muscle fibers. So that's one of the problems. One of the other problems I see is the loading scheme just doesn't make sense in my brain. We'll dive into that a little more in detail. The second example I like to give is came from when I was coaching CrossFit. And part of this, male or female lifters, doesn't matter. Somebody who's new, maybe smaller athlete, and they're weaker with their overhead press. It's awesome. They're in the gym, they're training. But sometimes it's fault of the equipment. So people think they must grab the bar to start because, well, there's the barbells over there in the rack. And I'm going to grab that and then I'm going to load it. But if I saw somebody with like an 80 or 75 pound overhead press max and they start moving the bar at 45 pounds, they don't get very many jumps. And they're starting at an extremely high percentage. We'll compare both of these to a 1,000-pound squatter. We could even use Chris Duffin, for example. Now, his warm-ups and attempts might be slightly different. Maybe we'll touch on that, maybe we won't. But it'll just be matching those two numbers. And I've wrote this out in plenty of gyms across the U.S., mine included, CrossFit gyms, regular gyms, strength coaches. I've wrote out a detail, and I never did the math on the percent until I wrote this article quite some years ago. When I did, it was weird because these two were kind of fairly close to starting points. And I was like, well, that was interesting. I just gave two examples of things I see all the time in the gym. Or then take that data and look at it at a 1,000-pound squatter. So if you're this overhead presser or this bench presser, I'm not knocking you. I'm here to educate you on how to make better warm-up attempts, weight selection attempts, how to time those. So should you be competing, right, or not, this is about a competition day in the end. Plenty of information though, should you not be, you're now educated on why and how your body might better acclimate to the loading that we're suggesting. The other two examples I'll give, one of them is myself, and last time I strained adductor pretty bad. I was warming up, I hit on my top squats, I was squatting something in the 5 reps. I had to step off for a minute, ran in my office, and got back on the phone, had to take a client call. Should have been a quick 10-minute call, turned into a 30-minute call, came back out on the floor, was like, I should re-warm up. It's been a while since I touched that weight. Me being a knucklehead, I'm like, it's only 400 pounds. I'm going to take 400 pounds for 3 reps for eccentric squats. It'll be fine. I'm tough. Yeah, until rep 2, my adductor said no, and light tear or real good sprain in the adductor kept me out of the game for a while. I was right on the verge of pulling my first 700-pound deadlift, and it kept me at bay from accomplishing that goal for quite some time. The other one I see all the time that's a problem in competition, getting a little more specific to competition, is bench press. I watch so many people, and squats and deadlifts get mistimed too all the time, trust me. But newer lifters, squats usually take people longer time to warm up for. Newer lifters are pretty quick. Pro lifters are also pretty quick at bench. The squat just takes more warm-up time. So if you're new to lifting and you're in your first, second, third, doesn't matter, powerlifting meet, and you're getting in the flow for the day, and you got that 45 minutes or that hour to start your squats and get on the platform on time, and then you hear the DJ yelling above the loud music, flight A bench, flight B bench, start warming up. And you're like, oh, I got to go do the thing because they said. And we rush out there, but that lift doesn't take the same 45 minutes to hour for most people. So I watch them, and they're still 15, 20, sometimes 30 minutes out from the platform, and they've done their last warm-up. I've had athletes that I've been handling panicking. Everybody else is warming up. They're already at 1 plate, 2 plate. I got this. It's on the clock. Trust me. And we time it perfectly, the exact time as we want. We hit the platform. We go well. And some of these other athletes are struggling to put up their opener because they've either had to hit it a couple times in the back, or what more commonly I see, they waited so long to actually attempt that. So I don't know why that one sticks with me all the time. I just shake my head every meet I ref or coach at, because I see it. I'm like, you're too soon. You're way too soon. You should not be at that weight. And they struggle, and we're on time. So hopefully this helps you be on time. At this point in time, you might ask, why are we not talking about meet day? We're going to talk extensively about in the gym. Once again, practice like you play. So the first example we gave when talking about a, maybe say a bench presser, bodybuilder type that does more hypertrophy work, they don't max a lot. I see some errors because they don't understand how to load that properly, or the rest periods, because it's not their sport. So imagine if I'm working up to a heavy single, but my first 3 sets of the workout again are 15 reps, moderate weight, so it's easy. 12 reps, moderate weight. 10 reps, moderate weight. And the task at hand requires heavy loads to be moved for 3, 2, 1 if we're looking for singles, multiple reps of 1 if we're warming up for singles. And those repetitions are not going to do that so well. What do I suggest? Well, stick to the task at hand. Now, this gets a little confusing, but hopefully you'll stay with me. If you were working up to a single, I'm not saying do 1 rep all the way up, because that's probably not going to warm you up real well either, but maybe sets of 5, and instead of just going through the motion, intent, move that bar fairly quickly in good form. Don't move it crazy, the stuff we see, trying to move the bar as fast as possible. I'm just trying to get things going. I will then take more frequent jumps than most people, and I'll do it with shorter rest periods, and that's going to maybe get my heart rate elevated a little bit, get the joints lubricated, maybe get a little sweaty, and that's the same effect that I've talked to a lot of people why they like to warm up with 20, 15, that's why I have to warm my elbows up. Okay, well, was it the set of 20, or was it the fact that you performed 20 total repetitions? So I would rather see smaller jumps, short rest period, 5 sets of 5, there's 25 of your reps that you like to do, and I'm doing it in a more explosive type. Hopefully, at least in my mind, I'm thinking that encourages us to get a little more active with our type 2 muscle fibers. In this example, once we got heavier, we'd break it down to maybe 3s, a little bit heavier 2s, save some energy, 1, 1, 1, and max. If you were just doing sets of 5 or 8 in a hypertrophy or strength block, I would highly suggest you start with those reps and stick with them all the way up. And we get the question all the time, well, coach, that's going to wear me out. So I'm going to do 10, 5, 3, 3, 3, 3 all the way up, and then I'm going to hit my heavy set of 8. You could, but I would argue back, if you're not in good enough shape to do your sets of 8 on the way up, you or your coach might need to address that so we can get you in good enough physical condition to handle the loads that we're prescribing in our training log. The next important point to note out of the article, if you get a chance to read it, and if not, what we're saying here, I've already touched on it a little bit because I gave 2 different types of rep schemes. This loading is not what I'm suggesting you do on meet day. So when we get to the end of this, I'll give you a quick suggestion on what we would do on meet day. And it'll be pretty simple. There's 2 important things that we're establishing. The percentage of your 1 rep max or estimated 1 rep max you're using. Now that can just be simply the load that you're using that day. It's a little bit of a variable. We have to have some data. Are we basing this number off of my 1 rep max, percentage of my 1 rep max, or if I'm working up to 315 pounds for 8, we need to know that number. The next most important thing, why I can't give definitions for everywhere would be, otherwise this brief webinar would be a 2-3 hour class on how to warm up and how to make attempts and jumps through different training blocks. Consistency of your lifting, specificity of what you're doing, your current goal, or more importantly, your current training block. So what do I really mean by that? Well, if you're not consistent, a lot of this stuff is going to go out the window, just like how intentful you're going to be under the barbell. Specificity of your goal. If a bodybuilder is working mostly on hypertrophy and they don't really truly care about 1 rep max strength, the example I gave of them warming up, if that's how they like to train, I'm not knocking them. That's a perfectly suitable attempt for them to try to work up to a new 1 rep max. It's closer to what they do. Now, if they would like better information on how to warm up and attempt better strength numbers, that information's out there. But if it's really not specific to them, we're not knocking them. This, again, warm-ups, timing, attempts on meet day, we're talking powerlifting, right? This could be utilized similarly for weightlifting or for strongman, depending on the event, of course. But think strength training. And then, of course, your current goal or training block. I'm going to warm up differently with reps in a hypertrophy block and loads than I am if I'm testing my 1 rep max or if I'm in a strength block. But this information carries true all the way across the board. Here's the bench presser we talked about. In this first example, I'm saying we've got a lifter with a current max of 305 pounds, and they're going to work up to attempt that 315. They warm up for the following: 135 for 10, 185 for 8, 225 for 5, 375 for 3, and then attempts that new PR. Makes or breaks it, don't care. I've seen this so many times. The next one down, we're looking at an overhead presser. Let's say again, I've got a CrossFitter, young athlete, and their current working 1 rep max is 85 pounds. And they need to do working sets right below that, maybe some singles, 75 to 80 pounds. They warm up with the following: barbell or 45 pounds for 5 reps, 65 for 3, 75 for 2, and then 80 for 1. One of the big problems with this, you can see, is they're getting 4 working sets. This bench presser is only getting 4 warm-up sets. And, well, quite frankly, maybe they hit that 315, maybe they failed it. So maybe they only had 4 total sets. So when we break this information down, it was really interesting because the averages of those were 49%, 69%, 81%, and then 92% in 4 warm-ups. What I propose is 8. So looking back at the bench presser, I would say let's hit the bar for 10 reps, which is oftenly neglected. 95 for 10, then 135. I'll skip the reps to be efficient here. You can read the article. 185, 225, 235, 275, 295, and then that 1 rep max attempt. That's giving us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 touches before that attempt. 8 is my favorite over the years. It's been my magic number. The overhead presser would need to start at 20 pounds, 35, 45, 55, repeat 55 again. Well, why not? We can. Still a warm-up set. Doesn't mean you always have to go up on your warm-ups. I could repeat for a technical issue, or I need a couple more sets to get things going. Then we'll hit 65, 70, and then we'll jump on to 80. On also getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 touches, similarly to this bench presser. Now, I always start with the bar. Squats, deadlifts, sometimes I don't, just because of positioning off the floor, but bench press, squats, always starting with the barbell. It can be hard again. We use the equipment example, maybe a CrossFit gym. Well, 35 pound, maybe a 15 pound technique bar, but most people don't want to load multiple bars, so they'll just grab the 45. Think about grabbing kettlebells, dumbbells, the PVC stick, these different apparatuses to get lighter loading. Some female master athletes that I've worked with up into their 80s who are bench pressing around 100 pounds, if I give them the barbell, that's 45% of their max, right? That's very similar to what we're saying here, where it was 49% on these averages. I've seen athletes do it. I've coached some of them. They can. But just consider the percentage of the 1 rep max we're giving them. The other real important reason for this is imagine the intent of lifting, right? We have so many more opportunities for technique. We like to tell people at our Principles of Loaded Movement seminars, grab the barbell, go through a couple reps when you're doing your movement press, and see what feels off that day. If I'm extra tight with the bar, that's just a cue that I need to go do more of my movement prep work that we're not covering here so I can move better under the load. It's pretty simple to us. If I wait until I have 135 on the bar, not that it's heavy, but I may not feel some things going on with my body. One of my favorite quotes from a former training partner and real great friend of mine, one of our Kabuki coaches from way back in the day, nobody cares what you warm up with. They don't care. Especially if you win the meet or outlift them. Nobody cares. Nobody's be like, ha ha ha, that guy started with the bar. Oh, that girl started squatting the bar. Nobody cares what you warm up with. We don't care. Same thing though, nobody cares what you open with. So why not give your body more opportunity? The only pushback I've ever seen from coaching and educating on this is, but that's gonna wear me out and get me tired. No, yeah, I'm a lazy powerlifter too. I like to exchange the word lazy for efficient. I hear what you're saying, but if you worked on your conditioning a little bit more, I'd argue you'd be in better shape and you could probably handle better loading schemes. So jumping ahead to what this looks like on a grander scale, I picked a 1,000-pound squat. This was actually before Chris. He had hit it in an equipped meet, but he had never hit it raw yet. This is before Chris hit 1,000 pounds for a triple in the gym. So we can use him as an example, or any other 1,000-pound squatter you can think of. If we kept the same rep scheme, this athlete's starting, right, no barbell, their starting weight is 495, 690, 810, 920 before going up to 1,000 pounds. I will tell you, just like my master's athlete that I gave as an example, they can probably do that. I've seen Chris Duffin start with some crazy heavy loads on deadlift and squat. When he was working up to an 800-pound squat every day, he skipped a lot of warm-ups. We will be honest with you. If you asked him why, he would tell you, because I didn't have the energy. Doing that every day, I can't take those reps. I have to risk injury a little bit and do minimal as possible to get the work done so I can recover, right? That's not the example we're giving here. Elite lifters doing crazy things or warming up differently for 1 rep max attempts in a meet is different than warm-ups and timing in the gym. It's really important to understand if we put ourselves in 2 test tubes. Kyle over here, we sleep in the same laboratory, eat the same food, no external anything, no cell phones, just gym time. Kyle B over here really wants to get better, does more warm-ups, does more techniques. We've already given the examples. You can see the 1,000-pound squat right behind me on the wall. Kyle A gets right to it every training session. Kyle B wants to get better. I do more warm-up set, I'm more mindful. I would argue whether my goal is strength, hypertrophy, weight loss, whatever it is, who's going to be in better shape at the end of the year? I will guarantee B. They might start out a little bit behind because they're doing more volume. But if you looked at the increase of loading, how many more sets and reps would be done in a year? How much more weight by tonnage is lifted? Do the math for fun. It's astronomical if they do it 1 time per week. If they're squatting twice a week, it's huge. So I would say not only are they stronger and better shape, but simply, which one's going to have better technique? This one starts at 49%. It's already getting kind of heavy. Goes to 60, goes to 80. Things are getting serious. Technique opportunity for improvement goes out the window. Kyle B over here is working through our 135, 225, 315, 405, 495. I will be a better lifter than my identical twin simply because I have more points of contact. Now, of course, that goes back to intent. If we both lift like idiots and we don't really care about form, nothing's going to get better. But if we're both mindful and trying to get better, I just have more touch points. As long as I'm not injured, guaranteed I will have quadrupled the amount of volume, if not more, at the end of the year than my counterpart. I have that much more practice. It's really important to know, taking it full circle, we'll go back to the young athlete. Yes, this young athlete in their overhead press can start with 50%. It will not hurt him, and then it can make quicker jumps if they're short on time. But once again, I'm arguing that if warm-ups are doubled, we start smaller, making smaller jumps, while lifting with 100% intent to become a better lifter, he will get stronger and potentially have a lot better technique. So, the choice is yours. At the bottom of the article, you can download an Excel sheet. Again, our head coach, Brandon, built. You can type in your working load for the day. It'll give you a breakdown of what jumps to make over those estimated 8 attempts. That's pretty in-depth, without even reading the article, on do more sets, take smaller jumps. You're going to get stronger. You're going to be a more technical lifter. So that's one of the biggest problems we see in the gym is people aren't warming up properly. They don't know how to make those attempts, and they carry that practice over to the platform, and it's worse when they get nervous. So we know how to make jumps and attempts in the gym now, but what about timing in the gym? Well, you can go down 1 of 2 roads. Now, if you want to be the stereotypical powerlifter who gets made fun of, or we make fun of our own selves on Instagram. Saw a great one the other day. Can't remember who the person was. Scrolling through the feed, they were taking a nap on the bench press. They threw the blanket off. It was made up, right? But hits 1 rep, reaches over, grabs some gummy bears, puts the blanket back on, right? We're not that bad, but people outside of powerlifting think we're that lazy and we take 10 minutes to do everything, and well, some of us do. Problem is, that's now a 3-hour, 3.5-hour training session. Not everybody can afford that. One of my favorite lifters here in the gym, busy working professional, comes in, gets right to it, is in and out in a workout that would take me an hour and a half. They're done in 45 minutes and out the door. impressive. I'm lazier, or again, we've established efficient with my time. Take it however you want to. But I'm impressed with their capability. Now, I talked to them before an important meet was coming up, and I said, hey, question, what's your top weight for the day? They just hit squats. They said that was it. I was like, how much time are you taking between your top sets? And they've had 2 or 3 meets under their belt, just joined our coaching service. They said 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes tops if it feels heavy. Like, oof, we got a problem. And what is that problem? Well, if you've never been to a powerlifting meet, it seems like it's going fast, but the timing from the beginning of the flight to the end of the flight is going to be on average, I've played with this number for quite some time, the average I get is 15 to 18 minutes. Obviously, bigger meets with packed flights to maximum capacity are going to be quicker. Powerlifting meets with very few flights and only 10, or if they have less than 10 people in a flight, adding time to those flights, they're going to go quicker. But you know you have a running clock of 1 minute on the platform. They have to change the load for most attempts. They have to raise and lower the thing for bench and squat, not on deadlift. So there's some time to adjust the barbell, and the lifter gets a minute. The lifter usually never takes the minute, which is a thought process for another day. I wish they would take some more time. But if you figure that, a lot of times I'm averaging about a minute 12, minute 15, and yes, I time these things at every meet to see the speed of the different loaders, the speed of the referees, the speed of the athletes competing. You can pretty much guarantee if there's 15 people in the flight, you're going to have 15 minutes between attempts. Now, let's say you're new to powerlifting, and in the gym, you always take 2 to 3 minutes because you lift alone and you're short on time. That can be a problem if you just hit a PR or the heaviest load you've ever hit in the gym on your second attempt, and now you're going to sit for 15 to 20 minutes nervous, and you've never ever waited that long to take an attempt. I told you I waited over 30 minutes and didn't kind of re-warm up and strained my adductor. Now, I've even heard at powerlifting meets, athletes were nervous. Oh, should I go hit that again in the back? No, you should not do that. Today we're testing our absolute strength, so we should be prepared for this, but it doesn't happen in the gym. So, easy solution. Regardless of what your top set is, a month out, if you're doing singles or doubles or triples, I don't care. And let's say you have at least 2 sets of this top work. It could even be 3 sets of 5. I don't care. You'll understand where I'm going with this. Between your second and third or your fourth and fifth, between your last 2 attempts, watch the clock intently for 15 minutes. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Get off Instagram. Stay focused. Keep your head in the game. Ignore the distractions of things going on around the gym. Me, I wouldn't talk to people. I'm staying focused. I practice like this, I train like this in the gym all of the time because it's close to specificity of the meet. Very, very important. And that's what it's important with gym timing. Now, you only have to do that once for me. At least once is all I ask. If you want to do it for all 3 of your attempts because you have time in the day, that's probably smarter because of the specificity of our sport. However, at least that one, and then go back to your 2 minutes, get out of the gym, go on about your day. To expand on that a little bit, I also sometimes like to wait. Sometimes I'll get up and the clock hit 15 minutes, I'll hit the chalk bowl, and I go right to it. I go through my ritual. But sometimes I'll stand up, get chalk on my hands, get the ammonia ready, I'm getting ready to go for a top attempt in the gym, in meet prep, and a song will come on, and I'll sit down or I'll pace, and I'll wait for the song to end. And if it's not a song that I don't know when I'm going to be called, or think about being called, right? I don't know when the song is going to be ending. I do that because I said 15 to 18 minutes on average, but if you've ever been to a powerlifting meet where unfortunately somebody got injured, or a bar was dropped to the floor, unfortunately, in the squat, or there's a misload or an error in the computer, sometimes these things take 2 to 3 to 5 minutes to get cleared up. And again, if you've never thrown yourself off, 15 minutes, I'm going, I'll wait till the song's done. It's a 3-minute song, it's a 5-minute song, I don't know. Just waiting, looking at the wall, imagining my name's on that roster, and then I go. It's just practicing for the unexpected. So that's how we encourage you to take your timing in the gym. The article will cover in depth are jumps and how we make loads. Timing is really what you have time for, but consider specificity of the powerlifting meet. That, remember, practice doesn't make perfect. I've heard perfect practice makes perfect. I kind of like that one, but my friend with me here today gave me one I like even more than anything I've ever heard. Practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent. And I think that's very important. We could say that's very similar to perfect practice, makes perfection. But whatever you're practicing, the more reps, the more hours, the more years you have into it, you're perfectly ingraining that into your body. That is what's going to stay. That's what's going to be permanent. So, would you like to be prepared to lift the demands on the platform? Or do you want to be prepared to lift well in the gym? The choice is yours. So lastly, we set attempts on meet day. Let's pull up something that probably very few of you have seen. Warm-ups and timing on meet day change a little bit. The article says 8. I will allow you to break that rule if you'd like to, if you're trying to conserve energy on the big day. That's fine. I've done it with some lifters, not all lifters. Here's my super easy, foolproof plan, just like making sure you take that 15 to 18 minutes at least once on your heavy training days. The last month on your squat, bench, deadlift day, whatever day you're training, the last month of those heavy days, as soon as you come through the gym door with your bag and your lifting gear, you look at what time you walked in. Poof. Throw that gym bag down. Stopwatch starts. I talk to my buddy for a couple minutes. I hit the foam roller for a couple minutes. I run on the treadmill. I do whatever stuff I do in the gym. I get my bag out. Start putting my knee sleeves on, my shoes, my belt. I do all of my lifter stuff. I start warming up. Boom. Plate, movement prep. Hopefully you're following us and you do awesome movement prep you learn from us. Read the article, so now I'm 135, 185, 225, however your warm-ups are, at the normal pace that you like, in your comfortable environment. And you work up to what you would think would be about your opener. If you don't know, ask your coach. If you don't have a coach, ask your friends or join our coaching. We would love to have you. I don't always tell athletes what their attempts are going to be a month out because I may not know yet or I don't want them to think about them. But we know what about an opener-ish weight is. Press, stop, record it 4 weeks in a row before the meet. Average the time. If it takes you an hour to do all of your stuff and you're in flight A, rules briefing usually starts at 8 and gets done about 8:20. You don't have an hour anymore. Think about it. So, the treadmill, the walkie-walkie, the foam rolly stuff, all of that stuff that you can get out of the way before rules briefing. Maybe know the rules really well so you don't have to attend. You need to time those attempts so you're comfortable matching the same timing you do in the gym. If you chose to cut out a couple of those 8 that we gave for an example, that will save you some time. You should add a 15-minute buffer, in my opinion. I tell that to all athletes. Because nerves come up, you're going to need to use the restroom, it's not your gym, there's people's stuff everywhere, there's people jumping in and jumping out of the racks, you can't just load the bar and take it whenever you want. It's kind of controlled chaos. If you're with a good coach, handler, or a good team, we can help control that chaos, but it's still different than you in your gym, in your rack, on your time. So, once again to recap, from the minute you walk in on all your heavy days, that last month, time it on a stopwatch. Average it out. You need that plus 15 minutes on meet day. That's what we're going to do. If you're writing down your warm-ups that last month as well, you know what jumps you like to take. So, well, practice like you play. Why would we not do the same thing on meet day? A lot of coaches and athletes would argue, well, I want to reduce load. Awesome. Take 1, 2, or 3 of those out of there. And be smart with your attempt selection. you've just saved yourself some volume. If you've peaked well, you're going to crush your third attempt. Really, really easy. So what do attempts look like? Again, you've probably been staring at these awesome numbers behind me and you're like, what is this? Well, we don't show this a lot, so I thought I'd give you a sneak peek. Our Kabuki strength athletes, this is an older version, but we program their attempts with some information for their meet. Now, this is in conjunction with their goals and what they've done in the gym, of course. We're not just throwing numbers down their throat. You can see over here on the left side, there's the low side, our plan of the day, and the high side. Because some things go exactly as planned, and that's what we hope for, is running right down the middle here. Sometimes things are a little rough, so we take it a little easy. And sometimes we're having the best day of our life, so we get to enter the high side and impress ourselves, our family, our friends, and our coach. But that's just a walkthrough of this. What we're looking for is these jumps. A lot of times athletes will go too little, too big. Very rarely do we see them picking their own attempts right down the middle. So the only reason I'm adding in attempt selection, I could have talked a half an hour, probably 2 hours on how to program this and where we got to these numbers. But it's important because we're saying warm-ups, timing, attempts on meet day. To go back full circle, we started about an article on how to create good loading in the gym. We gave you a quick talk and a few examples on how you should look at timing those attempts in the gym. What affects timing in the meet? And now we're talking attempt selection, because I usually see athletes make mistakes on their warm-ups, their loading, and the timing that it takes before they get to the platform. The next biggest problem I see if they do that well is on the platform. So let's look at it. I won't go through all these numbers here because it's crazy, but let's say we have a lifter attempting to take 300 kilos or 661 pounds for their third attempt. Well, they know that they've hit 650 in the gym before, and 661 is their goal for the day. So they decide they want to lock that in on their second attempt. I wouldn't blame them, nothing necessarily wrong with that. And then they're like, well, I want to be close to that, so let's take 287 kilos or 638 pounds. I know I can do that too. All right, well, that sounds pretty simple. But then we look over here, the weight loading from first to third, something a lot of people don't think about, is 4%. That's not very much. Weight from first to second is 3, and second to third is only 2. These are 26, 16, and 11 pounds, or look at the kilos on the left if you're familiar with them. Where that doesn't seem bad, we've already said nobody cares what you warm up with. I see a lot of lifters like this, when they couple that with bad warm-ups, bomb out. 633, whether it was nerves, whatever, was too heavy for the day. Or they have a crippling third attempt because they've wasted a lot of energy on a heavy opener, a heavy second, and even though they should have had it for that day, they just lifted a little too heavy on each because they wanted to open heavy and do something that they've done before, and they missed that third attempt. Let's look at a different example in bench. The conservative side. We're going to take a 374-pound third attempt. So we want to be pretty close to that again, so we take 352. But I'm really nervous about this meet, so I dropped my opener down, and I'm going to hit 292 pounds. The problem is you're looking at a 22% increase from first to third, or 82 pounds. If this person was a 500-pound bench presser, just randomly thinking of a number, I'd be okay with 82 pounds, not for a 350, 370-pound bench presser. It's too much. The difference between the weight that this feels in the hands to this is going to be enough to shock the body and feel odd. That again doesn't mean the above example wasn't going to hit their squats. I see it a lot, but I also see a lot of misses. Not saying that this person isn't playing it safe and they're not going to crush their third attempt, because I see it, and I see it a lot. But the biggest problem with this is the amount of difference between the two. 60 pounds between first and second. That's a lot for a 370-pound bencher. And again, this is why I started with attempt selection in training. If they commonly take 50 or 60 pound jumps in the gym and they're comfortable with it, knock yourself out. I wouldn't, but if that's how you train, you're adapted to it. If you normally only take 25 or 30 pound jumps, but all of a sudden on meet day, you're gonna take 60 pounds between two of those, that's going to feel heavy and it's gonna mess with your head. I promise. A lot of lifters ride out attempts. Some of them wing it. Very few people pay attention to rate of increase and the poundage or kilo increase between attempts. So, Kyle, let's get a good example of what a nicer plan might look like. Cool, I did that for you guys. I try to stay under 13 at all times. There might be a reason why we would break that, like any other rule. 10 to 13 is tops for me. I like a bigger jump from first to second, and then a smaller jump from second to third, but not too small, because then we wasted energy on our second, and it's going to take away from our third attempt. So in this case, again, let's say we have a 300 kilo deadlift attempt. Once that's 661, we're going to go down to 287.5 kilos or 630, and we're going to open lighter than we need to, as light as we can without breaking that 10 to 13% rule, because it is the end of the day. We've already done squat, bench, deadlift, and we might be more fatigued than we think. We would like that opening deadlift to set the tone. This is true for squat and bench as well, and be very clean for the judges and very efficient for the lifter. We're then going to take a jump that we normally would. I know and have coached plenty of mid 600 pound deadlifters, and I'm always fine with them adding 50 pounds to the bar unless they're attempting a new max and they're going to add 50% on from there. Jokes aside, that's a pretty normal jump for what I would load in the gym or what I'd see in the gym. And then around a 25 or 30 pound jump, that should be completely acceptable for the day. The biggest takeaway I have on this is don't go too far away. We like 10 to 13%, bigger jump to your second, and then a smaller jump to your third. Hopefully, a sneak peek at one of the many things that we do excellent and unique for our one-on-one athletes has given you a better idea on how to select attempts on meet day. Hopefully you understand that the way you train, loading and timing in the gym affects how you're going to load and time on a meet. If you pay attention to the details, like running a stopwatch against the actual speed of a meet, you'll never miss a lift by timing out because you know when you're going to be up. You don't have to worry about, do I have time to run to the bathroom? Am I up now? Am I up here? You can sit and stay calm and focus on your lift for a couple more minutes while you're sitting in the chair. If you're interested in any more information on warm-ups, timings, attempts, good things like that, I definitely suggest you head over to the article section, read this article. But consider, if you're not working with a coach that you love right now, you're training yourself, trying to learn these things, consider joining our staff for some one-on-one coaching. We'll take care of all of this for you and educate you along the way. Currently, we have an awesome 2-week free trial, so there's no harm, no foul for you to join us and see how we can help change your life and help you live better through strength.